This is Colby Newman with the National Weather Service office in Spokane, Washington, and this is the weekly weather briefing for Monday, June 20th, 2011. This is just an overview of what we will be talking about. For the first part of the week, we're expecting relatively benign weather with rising temperatures. Most valley locations will see 80s and even low to mid 90s by Wednesday. And then on Wednesday evening, we're watching a weak system that will move through and produce a chance of thunderstorms across southeastern Washington and southern Idaho. And then for Thursday, we're expecting breezy conditions and much cooler temperatures across the region. And then those cooler temperatures will actually last well into the weekend, but most of the weather will remain dry across the area. As for hydrology, the problem areas will continue to remain a problem into next week, but we're not expecting any additional issues with regards to river flooding. So again, we're expecting high pressures currently moving into the region, and we're expecting a warming trend through the middle of this week. By Wednesday, pretty much all valley locations will be in the mid 80s to even low to mid 90s across the lower Columbia Basin. And by Wednesday evening, we'll actually have a cold front that will be approaching the area from the west, and moisture surging out ahead of it will produce some showers and thunderstorms across northeastern Oregon that will then will likely move into far southeastern Washington, Camas Prairie, and probably Shoshone County on into late Wednesday evening and Wednesday night. At this time, there's certainly a possibility for one or two of these thunderstorms to produce damaging wind gusts. But exactly when and where, or if that'll even happen, still remains fairly uncertain. Elsewhere, there may just be a shower or two across the northern Idaho Panhandle and northeastern Washington, but we're not really expecting much in the way of precipitation. And even farther south, where there are these thunderstorms, most of the precipitation should remain fairly light and shouldn't really cause any issues with the rivers of the region. As for Thursday, we're expecting breezy conditions behind this cold front that will move across the region on Wednesday night. And the breezy conditions shouldn't be too big of an issue at this time. We're expecting wind gusts on the order of, at the maximum, 30 to 40 miles an hour, particularly across the Waterville Plateau and the lower Columbia Basin, probably near Vantage. But it shouldn't get much stronger than that. So there may be a little bit of blowing dust across the recently tilled fields, but it shouldn't be too big of an issue. Behind that cold front, we're going to experience, again, below normal temperatures on Thursday and Friday, and those below normal temperatures will actually persist on into the weekend. The Climate Prediction Center, in their 8 to 14 day forecast, gives us better than average chance of wetter than normal conditions and cooler than normal conditions next week. One of our forecasters here actually is sort of trending and thinking that it might actually warm up and be rather warm again. So, as is usually the case with a forecast more than a week out, there's a fair amount of uncertainty. Just going through the hydrology concerns, it's important, I think, to, at this point, realize that most of our river systems have more than likely seen their peak flows for this spring and early summer period. However, there's still high elevation snow, so under a worst case scenario, there still could be flooding, but it's appearing much less likely to occur. We should see rivers rise probably through the middle to latter half of this week, but with the cooler temperatures expected Thursday and Friday, the snow that's going to be melting rapidly over the next couple of days will slow once again and come down to more reasonable levels. And as for hydro concerns on specific rivers and lakes, the Pend Oreille Lake and Pend Oreille River will continue to probably be our most serious concerns on into next week. This is a graphic illustrating the amount of water in the snowpack on May 1st, and this is just a quick step through to show you how much actual snow has melted and how much water has actually come off of the mountains in the last month and a half. So you can see even by June 1st a considerable amount of snow did melt, and then over the last couple of weeks it's melted even further to where now as of June 20th there really is only a substantial amount of snow along the highest peaks, so we have likely escaped the worst of the flooding risk. As for specific rivers and their forecasts, this is the Okanagan River near Tonasket, and you can see over the past week it's steadily declined, and now it's beginning to hold steady. And with the warmer temperatures this week, we will probably see this river rise once again, but it shouldn't rise to levels that we even saw a week ago. So this is good news. For the Kootenai River and its tributaries, including the Moy River at Eastport, we're expecting these rivers to hold steady, if not even decline, over the next week. And these rivers, the chances of them flooding at this point this summer has pretty much all but disappeared, and we've likely escaped the worst of any risk of flooding. Because there is all the high elevation snow in the headwaters of the Pend Oreille River and the Clark Fork River, Lake Pend Oreille will remain above flood stage for the foreseeable future and probably flirt with flood stage for quite some time, but we're not expecting any major rises on the lake over the next week, even with these warm temperatures. The Pend Oreille River at Newport, you can see from here it's been on a steady decline over the last couple of days, and this trend should continue for the next several days before the river begins to level out as towards the weekend. But we're not expecting any major rises, and I think that's the most important thing to note for there. We will also be monitoring other areas, and folks near the East Cascades and a few of the northeastern Washington rivers will continue to still need to monitor rivers nearby, but again, we're not expecting any major flooding even with this warm weather coming up over the next couple of days. Probably the one other river that we will need to watch, though, will be the Stehekin River, and this is primarily just because they respond to snowmelt a little bit better than some of these other systems. As for the St. Joe and the Coeur d'Alene rivers, they will likely experience some small rises this week, but they're going to be fairly minor and insignificant compared to what's happened already this spring. The Snake River will see increased flows because of rises on the Salmon and the Grand Ronde, but we're not expecting the Snake River to even come close to flood stage. As for the Columbia River, high flows will continue, and I think it's pretty important to remember that below Priest Rapids Dam there'll continue to be rapid fluctuations in the river level, but we're not expecting any flooding along the Columbia River. So again, Tuesday and Wednesday, just expect relatively benign, nice early summer-like weather, a lot of 80s and 90s, and then we'll be watching southeastern Washington and the southern Idaho Panhandle Wednesday evening for a chance of thunderstorms that certainly have the potential to produce some damaging winds, but we'll watch this more closely as it approaches. And then Thursday, just expect a breezy and much cooler day across the region. but we're not expecting we're not expecting winds that will cause any damage or significant blowing dust. And those cooler conditions on Thursday will persist on Friday and well into the weekend. And we're expecting mostly dry weather across the region. And then as for hydrology, other than the brief rises on most area rivers this week, we're not expecting any additional problems. And so those that are currently in flood stage or very near flood stage will remain relatively near their current levels over the course of the next week.